In this lesson, we are going to talk about history of tourism. Even in prehistory, people traveled. But the main reasons for traveling were hunting and trade. That is why we cannot really say that tourism took place in prehistory. However, in ancient Greece, we saw the birth of tourism, namely sports tourism. The Olympic Games attracted lots of spectators from different towns, and they all came to watch the competitions. That is why ancient Greece became the cradle of tourism, as well as it was the cradle of many other sciences and disciplines. Rich people in ancient Rome liked to travel. Mostly, they traveled to Greece, Egypt, and Asia Minor. So we can say that the early beginnings of cultural tourism, medical tourism, and spa tourism can be noticed in ancient Rome. However, we should note that a very small number of people traveled, and these were usually wealthy citizens. The Romans were fascinated by Egypt, and they liked seeing the pyramids. Also, in Egypt, they appreciated medical treatments, and that is why we say that the early beginnings of medical tourism started in ancient Rome. When it comes to spa tourism, the Romans liked visiting cities like Naples with beautiful Roman baths. So that is why we can also talk about the beginnings of spa tourism. Greece fascinated the Romans as well. The Romans visited Athens, Delphi, Sparta, and other Greek towns. And together with the visit to the pyramids, the Romans engaged in cultural tourism in the simplest form. The Romans built roads. However, these roads were used for tourism purposes only in the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, the life was dominated by religion, and that is why pilgrimages to monasteries or cathedrals were popular. So, in the Middle Ages, religious tourism was dominant. Geoffrey Chaucer was an English author who described one pilgrimage to the Canterbury Cathedral, and he wrote his famous book Canterbury Tales. Canterbury Tales is a collection of stories that pilgrims would tell each other while they were traveling to the Canterbury Cathedral. Today, when we travel, we read magazines or books, we watch videos, we listen to the music, but in the Middle Ages, people used to tell stories to each other to entertain themselves during the trip. In the 17th century, young and rich British gentlemen started traveling throughout Europe in order to get education and to see the world. Their journey was called Grand Tour. They would visit France, Switzerland, and Italy in order to see famous works of art and also buildings and ancient sites. We should note that although this is a good example of cultural and educational tourism, uh, this type of travel was accessible only to higher classes, and it was one example of independent travel and never of mass tourism. The 19th century saw the birth of mass tourism. The first package tours were organized by Thomas Cook. His first tours were railway excursions. Later, he organized trips to France, Switzerland, Germany, Egypt, and he himself traveled round the world. Thomas Cook had an idea to enable working classes engage in traveling. He believed that in this way he will improve their quality of life. Thomas Cook introduced things like traveler's checks or guidebooks in order to make traveling easier. Thomas Cook was a real pioneer of tourism, and he founded a company, Thomas Cook and Sons Ltd, that lasted until 2019 when sadly it went bankrupt. 1950s and the 1960s were the years crucial for the development of modern tourism. In those years, an increase of disposable income was noticeable. It means that average people had more money that they could spend on what they wanted after they paid for the basics such as food, bills, or tax. Also, the development of television made faraway places seem closer. The most important thing in 1950s and 60s was that air travel became affordable. After the Second World War, air companies were owned by state corporations. But in 1950s and 1960s, private airline companies started to operate and to compete, so the prices dropped. It enabled average middle-class people to travel by plane. In the same time, the massive construction of seaside hotels began. Lots of these hotels were actually more or less skyscrapers. However, people flocked to the seaside in large numbers, and package tours were immensely popular. In this period, the use of credit cards also became popular and made the life easier, especially when traveling. It means that people did not have to exchange money when they came to a destination, but they could easily pay everything by credit card. The development of tourism in the 21st century is called postmodern era. What sets this period apart from any other period in the past is the internet revolution and online booking. Expedia, Booking.com, and TripAdvisor are giants among online travel agencies. The ease of browsing all the information you need to plan your trip led to the increase of independent travel. Another feature of the 21st century is the rise of sustainable tourism. Sustainable tourism is a type of tourism that tries to be in harmony with nature and culture. More or less, it is a concept opposite to mass tourism. Tourism has always faced challenges of this sort or another. COVID-19 is the newest challenge to world tourism. We all hope that soon tourism will recover from the blow and that it will probably become slower and smarter, closer to sustainable tourism, or that it will become what is called today intelligent tourism.